What kind of game is Guild Wars 3 going to be like? The answer to that question is starting to become a little clearer. Check this out.
That perception and solving for that perception is something that we've always wanted to continue to solve for at Arenanet. We started it with no subscription fees. Our concept of horizontal progression, where you can play our game for a while, take a break, go play other games, that's okay. We don't have anything that's holding you hostage to keep playing, and then come back when you see something cool you want to play again. All of that inspiration and concept is being applied to Guild Wars 3 as well.
Just in those 20 seconds, we pretty much got confirmation that Guild Wars 3 is going to be a sub-free, so no sub, horizontal progression MMO. But let's take a step back here because I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. Colin Johansson, the Arenanet studio lead, just had an exclusive interview with IGN and dropped a few nuggets that gives us a better picture, or a general picture or concept, of Guild Wars 3. Now let's pull up a clip here, but before we do, real quick, be sure to sub to the channel if you want more Guild Wars content. I am planning on hard covering Guild Wars all the way through the launch, whenever that may be. Now for the clip.
We start with player problems, and we make MMORPGs, so we start by asking, what are all the player problems and frustrations in the genre at this time? And back when we were making Guild Wars 1, one of the big ones was that every online game had a subscription fee. So we set out to make a game that would have no subscription fees, that anyone could play as much or as little as they want, and they could always play with their friends. When we set out to make Guild Wars 2, we wanted to make a giant open world MMO, the scale of all these other games that were out at the time, and solve for the problems that existed in those types of games. And so we made a world where players don't get put in conflict with one another, where it's easy to play with other players, and other players actually make the game more fun.
Okay, so there's a few things to unpack here. Colin here is telling us Arenanet's process when they design and develop their games, and if you watch the entire segment, it's reasonable to assume that this is being applied to Guild Wars 3 because later on he does talk about the same subject matter of solving player problems, and he says that this is all being applied to Guild Wars 3. There are a couple of key points in this clip, which is the no subscription model and a large open world where players do not get into conflict with one another, but rather are encouraged to play together for a more fun experience. It's entirely possible there's a separate open world for PvP like Guild Wars 2 has with World vs. World. But when it comes to the base open world, I think we were all kind of expecting this to be a non-open world PvP game. It sounds like it's going to be exactly that. This mention, along with the fact that this game is officially described as having adventure elements, which includes a big focus on movement and momentum, it sounds like Guild Wars 3 will be a more adventure-y version of Guild Wars 2 and what I'd imagine to be a seamless open world. That world being one where there's a lot of different activities going on in a dynamic world, and group play isn't mandatory, but is pleasant when available. In Guild Wars 2, you oftentimes run into random people that you end up organically working together with to complete open world objectives. In my mind, I'm picturing a Guild Wars 2 meets a Crimson Desert type of vibe, and I think this because Colin mentions that they took inspiration directly from single-player and multiplayer action RPGs, and is trying to deliver it in an MMO.
And this is really an inspiration piece, going back to what are we trying to do with combat in this game? And I mentioned earlier one of our goals is to take elements you would traditionally find more in action games and to try to figure out which of those can make their way into an MMO experience. We started from the very beginning having this game be playable both on a controller and mouse and keyboard, and challenged ourselves, can we make a combat system that feels awesome on both? Which is generally not the case for MMOs. They tend to start as mouse and keyboard and then get ported to a controller later. And a lot of the great inspirations that we could find are single-player RPGs or multiplayer RPGs, but not MMOs so much in that space. And so this concept art piece really is aspirational for us. So this is the type of experience we want to chase after. Can we make more action combat in a way that you wouldn't have seen in an MMO before?
I'm convinced the combat is going to lean heavily single-player RPG-like. As far as other areas of the game, Colin has a moment during this interview where he shares more details about their direction and inspiration, and it starts to paint a picture for us.
Again, when you start with solving for player problems and making games for players first, it forces us to ask a lot of these questions. How do we make a game that players can play as much or as little as they want? I think there's a lot of challenges with the MMO space right now where there's a perception for players, and I'm sure many of you have felt this, of like, hey, somebody tries to tell you to go play this next great MMO, and your first reaction is, I don't have time for that. it's like a second job, and you have to basically give up a chunk of your life to engage with mini MMOs. And I think that perception and solving for that perception is something that we've always wanted to continue to solve for at Arenanet. We started it with no subscription fees. Our concept of horizontal progression, where you can play our game for a while, take a break, go play other games, that's okay. We don't have anything that's holding you hostage to keep playing, and then come back when you see something cool you want to play again. All of that inspiration and concept is being applied to Guild Wars 3 as well. And I think, I will note, I think there's become a modern version of the subscription that we've seen evolve over the last few years, and even longer than that, in battle passes and paid battle passes, where it's basically a subscription kind of hidden and wrapped with other stuff around it. And I think we've challenged ourselves to ask the same question: can we make a game like this that doesn't have a subscription fee and doesn't have a battle pass fee buried in it as well? Because we think players are sick of those two. And so this will be a game you can buy it, you can play it as much or as little as you want. We will respect our players' time, and if they love it, we'll have other stuff that they can buy from us in the future, but we're not going to hold their time hostage, and we want them to be able to go play other games. And hopefully, I would highly recommend they should go check out Guild Wars 2 and Guild Wars 1, because we just announced this weekend that we're going to keep supporting those far into the future as well.
I mean, it was pretty much confirmed, but here it is. Based on this, I think it's safe to assume that Guild Wars 3 is going to be a more chill, less sweaty, horizontal MMORPG that does not have any subscriptions or battle passes, and will be a buy-to-play game with purchasable expansions and DLCs. But that's not all. PC Gamer also just had an interview with some of the NCSoft team about Guild Wars 3 being announced alongside Aion 2's global launch. In case you didn't know, Arenanet is owned by NCSoft, which I find very ironic, by the way, considering one of the least pay-to-win MMOs we have in the West, Guild Wars 2, is ironically, technically from NCSoft, a company that has the reputation of being the most pay-to-win. Funny how that works. Anyways, PC Gamer got a quote from NCSoft's Chief Business Officer, Paek Seung-wook. Quote, "I can't reveal too much because Guild Wars 3 is still under development, but there is a directional difference. Aion 2 focuses more on massive numbers of players like RVR, the more users, the more fun, where Guild Wars 3 is more about segments of small groups playing that makes the gameplay more fun. That's all I can say at the moment." Paek Seung-wook is the guy that led the development of Aion 2 and got promoted for it, which can be very surprising to a lot of people considering he very much incorrectly describes his own game. Aion 2 is not a game that focuses on massive numbers like RVR. The only large-scale RVR type of content that's in the game right now would be PvP fights in the Abyss, under the assumption that your entire faction, because it is a faction-based game, Elios versus Asmodeans, even show up at a very specific time once every, I think it was like 2 days, 48 hours, I think. I can tell you that Aion 2 does not revolve around that piece of content. It is 100% side content that the vast majority of Aion 2 players will never even see. NCSoft has explicitly stated that Aion 2 has a bigger focus on PvE, and I would agree with that as someone who's actually played the game. That's exactly what they delivered. While PvP content does exist, the main focus is very clearly on instance small-scale PvE, very comparable to Lost Ark, by the way. Now, I don't know how much weight we can actually put into his statement, considering his description of Aion 2. Not to mention a real possibility that this was just a poor translation. I'm honestly kind of leaning towards that. But to be fair, action RPG elements being implemented in online games generally do tend to be smaller scale. But I don't think Colin's definition of genre-evolving MMO design,
trying to create a new era of MMOs,
is simply just another MMO Light or MMO hybrid. There's a reason why Guild Wars 3 has this much hype and is overwhelmingly positive with its announcement. And that's because they made two very good games. They have a solid track record. I would be shocked if Guild Wars 3 was delivered and it ends up being some MMO light that many don't even consider to be a true MMO. Sure, they are attempting something very ambitious and even admitted themselves that they could end up falling flat on their face. But if they do, I don't think it's going to be from delivering us an MMO light. For now, though, we can only continue to speculate, but at least we have a better perspective with the overall direction of Guild Wars 3. Now that it's safe to assume that the game is going to be a buy-to-play, expansion-based, horizontal action MMORPG, what are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments section below. For those of you who are super hyped about Guild Wars 3 and wish to give Guild Wars 2 or want to go, feel free to join our guild and Discord if you're looking for a community. We have a ton of new and returning players coming in with great vets around to help you along the way. We're going to wrap this one up, guys, but before we do, I do have a 25% discount code in the description below in case you are looking to buy anything Guild Wars. I also have my affiliate links down there if you would like to support your boy, but that's going to pretty much do it, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.